My name is Nicole. I'm 32 years old and live in a quiet town about a 50-minute drive from Boston. Every morning, I brew myself a cup of espresso, listen to the weather forecast, and walk to my office just a block away from home. I'm the co-founder of a biotech startup in the healthcare sector, a role that's tough to describe, especially to people who think office work just means typing away all day. My family never quite got what I do, or maybe they never really tried to. To them, I've always been the odd younger sister, the one who dressed plainly, didn't wear much makeup, and was always glued to a laptop or sitting through some meeting. Claire, my older sister, is the one they've always admired. She's 3 years older than me and has always been seen as the ideal daughter. Stunning, poised, polite, and charismatic. Even in family pictures, I look like a blur behind Claire's spotlight. On holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, relatives would gather around her, gushing, "Claire, you look gorgeous," or "Wow, Claire, your new boyfriend is a doctor?" That's amazing. As for me, if anyone remembered I was even in the room, they'd say something like, "Nicole? Yeah, she's doing something in biotech." They talked like I was a footnote at the end of a chapter. I used to think if I worked hard enough, stayed out of the way, and carried the weight behind the scenes, my parents might finally notice me, be proud of me like they were of Claire. But no. The attention, the high hopes, the applause, it was all hers. And me? I was always distant, too serious, hard to talk to. They never knew I stayed late at the office past midnight solving a crisis for a public health project worth nearly $2 million. They never asked what it felt like to build a business from nothing with 3 college friends. When people ask about my family, I give a small smile and say, "We haven't talked in a while." Not because I'm hiding anything, just because there's nothing left to say. We haven't spoken in over 2 years. No calls, no messages, no birthday wishes. Just silence, like a dead phone line nobody cares to fix. I used to believe family was the place you could always return to, but that idea shattered on my mom's birthday. It was late March. I had just sealed a successful funding deal with a New York investment firm. I was planning to take 3 days off and fly home early to help my parents prepare for Mom's birthday, like I always did. Nothing extravagant. I just wanted to lend a hand, the way I always had. When I called to let them know, it was my dad who answered. "I'm planning to come early," I said. "Let me know if you need me to pick up anything or help out." I still remember his tone. Not angry, just off. There was a brief pause. Then he cleared his throat. "Nicole, if possible, don't come home this year." I froze, thinking maybe he was concerned I had too much on my plate. "It's okay, Dad. I already cleared my schedule. I really want to be there." This time, his voice was firm. "Claire's bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO. Polished, clearly successful. Your job, well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just draw comparisons and make things uncomfortable. So, it's better if you sit this one out." My body went cold. My chest tightened. A chill crawled down my spine. I clenched the phone and said through gritted teeth, "Are you telling me I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't take it back. In fact, he doubled down. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Then he hung up. No hesitation. No second thoughts. My apartment went quiet, too quiet. The espresso in my hand had gone cold. I stared into nothing, like the entire world had shifted with a single sentence. I didn't cry. I just sat there. And for the first time in my life, I understood something. I was no longer part of the family I'd tried so hard to keep together. I sat in my usual armchair by the window. Early spring sunlight spilled through white curtains, but couldn't melt the frost forming inside me. My father's words echoed, loud and final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." I looked down at my hands. My fingers trembled, not from rage, but from something deeper. The breaking point. I'd always thought that even if I'd never be loved like Claire, at least I was still their daughter. Turns out I wasn't. I stood up and walked to my desk. Without hesitation, I opened my laptop and logged into my banking app. For over 2 years, I had been sending money to my parents every month, paying for their electricity, water, internet, even cable. Nearly $6,000 monthly. That didn't include extras, like when mom said the refrigerator broke or dad claimed the car needed repairs. They never asked if I could afford it. They just said, "Claire's having a tough time after her job switch. If you can help, that'd be great." And I helped. Quietly. As if it were an obligation I'd signed the day I started earning a paycheck. I opened the transaction records and scrolled. The total read $15,720. My heart sank, not from regret, but from knowing that even after all that, I was never enough. I hovered over each bill. Electric, water, internet. Click. A notification appeared. Auto payment canceled successfully. No beeps. No warning signs. Just silence. Just like the way I had always existed in my family. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not out of anger, but because I couldn't stop thinking about it, about what my father said, about how my entire family had discarded me just to impress Claire's new boyfriend. A man I had never even met, yet I was measured against him. I'd been compared my entire life, but this was the first time I was outright dismissed. As though my presence was somehow an inconvenience. My mother's birthday came and went quickly. I didn't call. I didn't mail a card. I didn't post a thing on social media. Not out of anger, but because I couldn't pretend anymore. At exactly 5 o'clock in the evening, as I sat on my balcony sipping peppermint tea, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then let it dim. A message followed immediately. "Nicole, why is the power out? Can you look into it for us?" I set my tea down and opened the next text from Dad. "No water, no internet. Call the companies. Your mom's panicking." I sat still, eyes locked on the tree line out back. No rage, no sadness, just an odd stillness. They didn't ask, "Are you all right?" Not a word about that call. They just wanted me to do what I'd always done, handle the problems. Then Claire messaged me. "The internet's out, guests are arriving, and Mom is nearly in tears. What's going on?" I picked up my phone and typed. 3 weeks ago, Dad said that if I insisted on coming home, I shouldn't call him my father. I'm just respecting his wishes. If this is inconvenient, maybe ask someone you're not embarrassed to introduce. I didn't send it. I deleted the entire message. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I knew that no matter what I said, they'd only hear what fit their narrative. I placed the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My little apartment remained still and quiet. No criticisms. No passive remarks. No expectations. The following day, Claire left me a voicemail. "Mom's been crying all night. Do you even realize how important yesterday was? My boyfriend met the family for the first time, and it was all ruined. You're unbelievably selfish." I listened through the whole thing, then powered my phone off. For years, I hadn't been selfish enough. Now was the time to be. I opened my work email and glanced through the weekend operations update. One subject line caught my eye: New Jersey staff relocation to Boston, awaiting approval. I clicked on the attachment, scanning the names. Then I stopped. Liam Prescott. My heart skipped slightly. I remembered that name because just 3 days ago, my mother had brought it up. Claire's boyfriend Liam works at a large firm. I narrowed my eyes at the file. Current role: Head of Finance, New Jersey branch. Relocation to Boston headquarters. Approval needed. Nicole Warren, co-founder. I let out a quiet chuckle, instinctively. The world was smaller than I thought, and something told me that this was just the beginning. I remained seated at my laptop, hand resting on the mouse, feeling an emptiness in my chest, as if someone had quietly erased a part of my past I'd clung to for too long. Nearly $16,000. Not a cent missed. Every single payment made by me, on time, without question. Yet, not once did anyone say, "Thank you." Not once. I scrolled back through the payment history. The same breakdown repeated. $192.48 electricity. $136.72 water. $248.50 internet, and cable. Month after month. As if I were their silent, unpaid financial assistant, unseen, unappreciated, forgotten. I remember the last phone call with my mother about a year ago when she rang just past midnight. "Nicole, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Claire's out on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left. You're the only one left." It sounded casual, but it revealed the truth. I wasn't loved like a daughter. I was just the emergency backup plan when their favorite child was unavailable. And now, being told not to come home because I wouldn't look right, I finally understood. Everything I had done over the years wasn't out of love received, but out of obligation expected. I was remembered only when something needed fixing or paying. But when I needed something, no one was there. My phone lit up again. A message from Mom. "Nicole, I know yesterday got a little tense, but could you cover the internet bill? Claire's trying to keep things calm with the guests." I stared at the screen, not as a daughter, but as a stranger.
No epalegi.
No mention of the cold dismissal from my father. Just another request. Like always. I didn't reply. I stepped out onto the porch, sitting in the old wooden chair under the fading April sunlight. It wasn't warm yet in Boston, but the crisp air helped clear my mind. I thought about Liam, Claire's new boyfriend. And now, my incoming employee. The irony. My family excluded me from Mom's birthday because of him, while he was about to report directly to me. If life were a comedy, this would be its punchline. I returned to my desk and opened the email. The subject, new hire confirmation, Liam Prescott transferred to Boston office. I clicked into the profile. Everything matched. His age, experience, degrees.
A raffiné de résumé.
Just the type Claire would fall for. Educated, accomplished, polished, on paper. I looked at the attached photo. Something felt familiar. Then I remembered we had briefly crossed paths at a conference about 6 months ago. He had shaken my hand and addressed me as co-founder Warren, but neither of us had connected the dots. Or maybe I just never cared enough to know who Claire's partner was. Now I had a decision. Approve the transfer or decline it. But I realized I didn't need to do anything. Life had already crafted the perfect twist. All I had to do was sit back and wait for Claire to discover that her boyfriend worked under the sister who had always been a source of embarrassment for the family. The next day, Liam arrived at the office. He stepped into mine holding a folder, a trace of nervousness on his face. When I looked up, his gaze locked onto me, then widened in shock. "Nicole," he asked, voice lowered. I gave him a faint smile, calm and composed. "Welcome to Pacific Genomics," I said. "I'll be overseeing the entire financial strategy for this quarter. I'm looking forward to collaborating with you." Liam froze. His face paled, flushed, then paled again. No one in my family knew I had co-founded this company. No one had ever truly asked what I did. They simply assumed I was some entry-level office worker. I said nothing else, just slid the contract toward him. Liam accepted it and quietly exited the room. I leaned back in my chair. I wasn't joyful. I wasn't sorrowful. I just felt like the wheel had finally turned, and this time, I didn't have to utter a single word. The truth had spoken for itself. On the morning of my mother's birthday, the Boston sky was unusually overcast.
A dense fog lingered,
making everything appear hazy, as if the world itself was bracing for something to fall apart. I poured myself a strong cup of black coffee, sat by the window, and stared at the vacant yard. I had no plans. No texts, no calls, no birthday posts. I simply wanted things to unfold naturally without my involvement. At 9 o'clock sharp, my phone vibrated. The first message was from Mom. "Nicole, sweetheart, I think the power is out. Can you check for us? It's an important day." I placed the phone screen down on the table. The tone, sweet, gentle, as though nothing had happened. As though I hadn't been told by my father that I humiliated the family and shouldn't come around. 15 minutes later, another message arrived, this time from Dad. "Still no power. Water's not working either. Is something up with the payments?
Call the utility now."
Brief. Distant. No concern. No mention of the exclusion. Just an order. like I was still the unpaid coordinator of their household problems. I sighed. For 2 whole years, I never missed a single bill. Electricity, water, internet, cable. I had canceled them all the night my father ended the call and cut me off because I was hard to introduce. And now, on the exact day Claire was unveiling her boyfriend to the family, the entire house had descended into disorder. No power. No running water. No internet. Precisely as expected. By 11 o'clock, the messages came flooding in. Mom. Nicole, please, I'm begging. Guests are arriving. Can you just help this once? Dad, no electricity. We can't prepare food. Where are you?
Take care of this now.
Claire, seriously, Nicole, today matters. Mom's on the verge of tears. No internet. I can't reach anyone. I'm losing it. Can you stop being so selfish? I leaned back. My coffee had gone lukewarm. The texts didn't bring satisfaction. They didn't make me feel justified. I only felt nothing. A quiet, steady emptiness. Then the phone buzzed again. A video call from Aunt Sharon, the only family member who still sent me holiday greetings, even though I rarely replied. I hesitated but answered. Her old kitchen appeared on screen, dimly lit by the flashlight on her phone. She looked exhausted, eyes a bit puffy. Nicole, she said softly, your mom's panicking. The house is dark. Everyone's scrambling, and no one knows what to do. I said nothing. I just looked at her. She hesitated, then added, not accusing, not defending. What happened? You've never missed your mom's birthday. I know you have your reasons, but say something. I took a slow breath and kept my voice level. My dad said I made the family look bad. He told me if I insisted on coming, I shouldn't call him my father anymore. What do you think I'm supposed to do after that? Aunt Sharon froze. Her expression shifted instantly. In the background, I could hear noise, my mother saying loudly, she's probably just sulking. No one would be cruel enough to do this. Then a sharper voice. Claire, Liam's almost here. Someone call the power company already. I can't believe she's doing this to us today. I gave a faint, humorless smile. Aunt Sharon had heard everything. She didn't defend anyone. She remained silent. Then, unexpectedly, the screen moved. A new face appeared, Liam. Same neat blazer. Same polished demeanor as in his resume. He looked directly at the camera and almost blurted out. Nicole? Everyone went still. You're Nicole Warren? The one who runs Pacific Genomics. I nodded calmly, gaze steady. A long pause followed. Then Liam turned to the entire room. She's my direct supervisor. The one who approved my transfer to Boston. Utter silence. Claire's mouth hung open. My parents were frozen. Not a single sound. I answered simply, hope your introduction goes well today. Then I ended the call. Afterward, I set my phone aside without another word. Outside the window, the faint afternoon light filtered weakly through the lingering gray clouds. The world around me was still, eerily still.
No voices.
No new messages. No follow-up calls. Just me and a strange, weightless sense of peace. The truth had come out, not through me, but through them. I didn't need to expose anyone. I didn't need to explain a thing. I just stayed silent and let the moment reveal what needed to be known. Liam had stated it clearly. I was his manager, the co-founder of Pacific Genomics, the company they all assumed I was just another nameless employee at. And in that moment, their kitchen had turned into a stage. One by one, the masks fell, and no one could stop it. Claire, my sister, the one who once whispered to Mom that Nicole should find a job that's easier to describe, now stood frozen beside a birthday cake that hadn't even been lit. She had tried so hard to impress her boyfriend with empty praise and a carefully curated image of family perfection. But in the end, it was that very boyfriend who called me boss in front of everyone. And I could picture it all clearly, like I was watching the scene replay from afar. My mother was so rattled, she nearly dropped the cake tray. My father, his face flushed, clutched the edge of the table, while the relatives, those who only ever came for food and to pass judgment, sat frozen in silence, their eyes darting around as they tried to comprehend what had just taken place. Aunt Sharon still had the call going, her expression no longer curious, but something closer to respect. She didn't say much, just gave me a small nod before ending the call. That evening, I received the first message from Claire. It was long and chaotic, a blend of anger and desperation. "You knew all along, didn't you? You let it happen right in the middle of the party. Mom's been crying all night. Liam doesn't even know how to respond. Don't you think that was heartless, Nicole?" I watched the message appear on my screen but didn't open it immediately. Instead, I made a cup of ginger tea and sat down on the couch, letting the steam ease the tension in my chest. I didn't feel triumphant, but I didn't feel remorse either. After about 10 minutes, I finally replied, just a few lines. Nothing more was needed. You say I was cruel, but I was simply at home. I didn't start the video call. I didn't call myself his boss. I didn't do a thing. And if one simple truth was enough to ruin the entire party, then maybe that party was never built on anything real in the first place. I pressed send. I wasn't expecting an answer. About half an hour later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. The message was brief. "I never thought you'd choose this way to get back at the family." I closed my eyes and leaned back in my chair. Get back? Is that really what they thought this was? I just remembered being shut out of a family gathering, having my identity as a daughter disregarded because my job wasn't impressive enough. I remembered quietly covering dozens of bills over 2 years without a single check-in or thank you. I remembered doing everything I could to be accepted, to be loved. And now, I was finished trying. Around 10 o'clock that night, I received an email from Liam. "Nicole,
I'm sorry.
I wish I had known sooner. I truly admire you for your work and for the way you handled everything in silence today. I've never felt more ashamed, but not because of you." I read it carefully before replying, slowly and deliberately. "Liam, you don't need to apologize. Everyone is accountable for how they choose to see others. And don't worry, I never bring personal matters into the workplace. But I hope now you understand, sometimes silence is the most powerful form of strength." I clicked send, powered down my screen, and placed the phone face down on the table. Tomorrow, I would still go into the office like usual. There would be reports to review, meetings to prepare for, and a world that kept turning outside. But now, there was one key difference. Starting today, the ones who once disregarded me, finally knew who I truly was. And without yelling, without accusations, I had brought everything to a halt. The next morning, as I walked into my office, sunlight streamed through the glass walls, casting a soft golden light across the space. The air felt calm, like the universe had given me a few peaceful moments before the noise returned. I sat at my desk, powered on my computer, and opened my email as always. In the priority inbox was one unread message. The sender, Liam Prescott. I clicked it. Subject, apology and goodbye. Nicole. I don't know where to begin. After last night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, maybe it shouldn't have happened in front of so many people. But at the same time, I feel a strange sense of clarity, especially when it comes to you. I'm not embarrassed that you're Claire's sister. I'm embarrassed that I didn't see who she really was sooner. I can't stay in a relationship where there's no fundamental respect. As of today, I'm ending things with Claire. Thank you for your silence yesterday. And thank you for the way you lead, with calm, strength, and fairness. Liam. I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair. I wasn't glad that Claire got dumped, but something about it felt right. Like, for once, someone outside the family truly saw what I'd been carrying for years. The things I was told I was too sensitive about. Too cold for staying quiet about. I didn't reply. There was no need. But about 2 hours later, as I was reviewing the financial summary from the finance team, my phone lit up. A message from Claire. Nicole, I know you're busy, but please can you talk to Liam for me? He's misunderstanding everything. I looked at the message calmly, unaffected. I didn't respond immediately. Less than 5 minutes later, another message came in. You're his boss. You have influence. If you say something, he'll reconsider. I stood and walked over to the window, staring down at the bustling street below. All those years, I had longed for just one message from Claire when I was hurting. Just one word of encouragement when I failed. But there had been nothing. And now, with her relationship falling apart, the first person she reached out to was me. Not to say sorry, but to fix it. I returned to my desk and typed. Liam didn't walk away because of anything I said. He left because of who you are. And maybe for the first time, he truly saw it. Claire didn't reply right away. But about an hour later, a new message arrived. You're right. But I really don't want to lose him. I'll change, this time for real. Please, just this once. I didn't respond. Not because I was mad, but because I was past the point of explaining. When I left the office that evening, the early spring breeze was still cool, but the sunset painted the rooftops in deep orange hues. I walked toward the parking lot slowly, without urgency, without tension. For the first time in years, I felt light. I hadn't sought revenge. I had simply stood in my truth and let everything else come to light. Claire had caused her own ending. And Liam, once captivated by the illusion of a flawless family, had finally seen what lay beneath, the foundation I had walked on nearly my entire life. That night, I played an old playlist, the kind of music that used to make me feel invisible during the early days of building my startup. But this time, the melody felt like a quiet affirmation. I had stepped out of the shadows, not by shouting, but by standing firm. And that was something Claire or anyone else in my family had never anticipated. I no longer craved validation. I simply wanted to be myself and live the life I truly deserved. Roughly a week after everything had settled down, on a rare Sunday afternoon when I promised myself not to even glance at my laptop, the doorbell rang. I hadn't been expecting anyone and nearly ignored it. But something compelled me to glance through the peephole. My parents were standing at the gate. I froze for a few seconds, trying to process the image. My mom held a small bag, her face weary. My dad stood with his arms crossed, eyes less severe than during our last conversation, but still carrying that familiar rigidity. I opened the door and said nothing. Hi, honey, my mom greeted softly, her voice hoarse as if she'd just gotten off a long flight. Can we come in and talk for a while? Without a word, I stepped aside.
No hugs. No warm welcomes.
Just a thick silence stretching from the entryway to the living room. I poured some water, set down 2 glasses, and sat across from them. My mom's gaze moved around the apartment, simple, orderly, and untouched by anything gifted by them. My father spoke first. About your mom's birthday? I said some things I shouldn't have. I remained quiet. He looked at me again, then continued, a bit more slowly this time. Maybe we've been too hard on you. Claire's been falling apart since the breakup, and your mom's been crying nonstop. So we wanted to talk. As a family. Still, I didn't speak. Just gave a slight nod, waiting to see where this would lead. I was used to the drawn-out introduction before they got to the real reason for the visit. As expected, my mom jumped in right after. Well, we actually have a proposal. She hesitated, then placed the bag on the table and pulled out a printed document. We've thought this through. You're stable now. Your job is solid. If possible, we were hoping you could help us with a monthly contribution. Around $2,000. Just enough to cover our living expenses, insurance, and a bit toward retirement. I looked up at her. $2,000 a month. My dad jumped in, as if worried I might misinterpret. It's not much, considering your position. We're family, Nicole. I straightened up, my tone even. What about Claire? My mom faltered. She's not doing well after the breakup. She's really down. Work's not going great. We can't pressure her. I let out a soft laugh, not out of bitterness, just because the pattern was so familiar. Claire was always the one who couldn't be pressured. I was always the one expected to carry the weight. I looked them in the eyes. If Claire agrees to contribute her part, $1,000, I'll consider it. But only with a contract. One that clearly states, when you both pass, all assets, including the house, go to me. The room went quiet. My father's brow furrowed, his face reddening. You're seriously putting conditions on your own parents? I didn't flinch. Not conditions. Boundaries. I already spent nearly $16,000 on this family over 2 years, without a single acknowledgement. If I'm going to keep supporting you, then everything needs to be transparent. My mother turned to my father, her voice wavering. Maybe we should discuss it further. But he sprang up from his seat, slamming his hand against the wooden table, making the glasses rattle. We raised you for over 20 years, and now when we ask for a little help, you demand a contract? Unreal. I remained seated, my gaze unwavering. Dad, I don't owe you. If raising me was an investment that you expect repayment for, we can calculate it line by line. But I won't keep paying for it with silence. He looked like he wanted to respond, but stopped himself, lips pressed into a hard line. My mother stood and gently tugged on his sleeve. Let's go. I stood too and walked them to the door. No hugs. No farewells. When the door shut behind them, all that remained was the soft breeze drifting in from the balcony. In that quiet, I knew another chapter had closed. And this time, I was the one who wrote the final line. After that day, they never reached out again. No calls. No texts. No confrontations. Not even an apology for the outburst that had shaken my home like a storm. As if all their frustrations in life could be traced back to their difficult daughter. But I wasn't surprised. I'd grown used to that kind of silence, the kind that doesn't come from remorse, but from people who no longer know how to speak once they've lost control. I kept moving forward. Quiet mornings with coffee. Strategy meetings that stretched into the night. Signing deals with partners who once doubted a young woman's ability to lead a biotech firm. And through all of it, the guilt began to fade. I stopped believing I was wrong for saying no, for refusing to be the family's backup wallet, the automatic caretaker, just because I had the strength to handle it. Because eventually, you realize love can't be measured in monthly deposits. It can't be enforced through guilt. If affection only exists when the bills are covered, then it's not family, it's a transaction. I began cutting the invisible ties that had kept me tethered to the roles they assigned me. I no longer used a family photo as my phone wallpaper. I didn't remember Claire's birthday. I didn't circle holidays on the calendar to remind myself to send a gift. I stopped lingering over guilt-soaked messages. I learned to place the period myself, rather than waiting for them to begin with an apology. One day, during a team meeting, Liam, now officially our company's head of finance, walked in with an investment report. He worked with focus and professionalism, always maintaining a respectful distance. We never spoke of Claire. Not once. And I appreciated that. Some truths, once fully seen, are best left unspoken. That afternoon, as I left the office, a light drizzle fell. I stopped by a familiar cafe and chose a window seat. On the wall, a carved wooden sign read, "Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice." I sat there, sipping a hot latte, reflecting on the journey. There was a time when I truly believed that if I just stayed quiet, gentle, and responsible enough, I would eventually be accepted. But the reality is, when you allow others to grow accustomed to disrespecting you, they begin to treat your sacrifices as duties and your silence as consent. I made the decision to stand up, not to rebel against my family, but to protect myself. I chose to establish boundaries not out of selfishness, but because I finally understood that self-worth cannot be defined by someone else's guilt or sudden expectations. And if someone were to ask me, "Nicole, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you?" my honest response would be, I regret that it took me so long to understand I deserved better than that. Because true family is where you're seen and valued as a whole person, not as a bank account, not as a placeholder, and certainly not as the default option when others constantly put you last. I understand my story might be hard for some people to accept. In our society, turning down family obligations is often labeled as being ungrateful. But try standing in my shoes, the daughter who is dismissed for not being polished enough to introduce, the one who silently gave tens of thousands and never once heard, "Are you doing okay?" I didn't choose family in the traditional way.
I chose myself.
What about you? Do you think I was too distant? Or did I finally learn to love myself at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your story could be the light someone else needs when they're caught between responsibility and freedom. And if you've ever felt like a stranger in your own family, believe me, you're not alone. Nicole's journey is a powerful reminder that no one is required to sacrifice themselves for a relationship that wears the label family but shows no real respect. When you learn to set boundaries, to choose self-respect, and to stop allowing your kindness to be exploited, that's not selfishness, that's growth. Nicole wasn't out for revenge. She chose composed silence to reaffirm her dignity. And sometimes, the quietest step is the loudest path toward real peace. What do you think about Nicole's decision? Was she too tough, or was she simply protecting herself after years of pain? Share your perspective below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories that matter.